Welcome to my first video on this series. This is the Very Veggie Legacy, and we are currently on the broccoli matriarch. We have Lee here, and we already have the aubergine heir, which is Aubrey here. As you can see, we've got a little purple one and our green one. So as you can see, our matriarch here isn't feeling great, unfortunately. Well, that's because she is pregnant currently. So I am starting this legacy late on here, but I have been posting on Tumblr, so you can check that out. The link for that will be in the description. And so yeah, let's just get into introducing The Sims. So here is our matriarch. We have Lee Veggie. So she's a creative sim, an art lover, and high maintenance. So yeah, so this is the start of the Very Veggie Legacy. So the description for the broccoli generation 1 is: vegetables spend a lot of time outside staring at the sky. You notice the way sunlight filters through the leaves. You hear how the wind sings. You watch the sky paint a picture every night at sunset. Nature is beautiful and you want to capture it. You become an artist and dedicate your life honing your craft and sharing it with others. So as you can see here, her traits are creative, art lover, and high maintenance, and her aspiration is Lady of the Knits. So no career. So she is currently running her own business and she wants to turn it into a 5-star business. And at the moment, she chose it to be a creative art studio business. So people will paint paintings, she'll sell them, she'll make pottery, she'll sell her own pottery there, and people can really just hang around and talk. So there are a few things that she needs to do. So she needs to achieve a 5-star business, max awareness skill, and max 3 artistic skills of your choice. So for her we chose painting, knitting, and pottery. So at the moment those do seem the easiest, but I have also taken in cooking for her, as that one's quite easy to pass. So I think that would be one of her creative options, maybe instead of knitting, as that's more of the aspiration side. And here we have Aubrey Veggie. So this is our aubergine matriarch heir. And at the moment she is a wild toddler. And we're not really going to be doing much, at least until she's a teenager. Maybe we'll start working on some of her skills when she's a child, but we don't really know yet. And right now you might be wondering, well, who are these people that you have up on your screen at the moment? So here we have Paka Uha. So this is actually one of Lee's exes. Yes, one of. And he is also the father of her children. Children, you say? Yes, children. So Lee and Paka actually had twins. So here we have the other twin, Audrey, who is an inquisitive twin. Well, you might be wondering, well, why aren't they in the same household? So here's just a long story short. So Paka and Lee, they had a good relationship for a while. So Lee was seeing someone else when they first met, but once Lee fell pregnant with Paka's baby, or in this case babies, she amicably broke up with that other person she was seeing. So her and Paka, they stayed together, they had the girls, they grew up together, but then one day everything just really went to hell. So one day Lee came home, she found Paka literally just walking away from a broken plant pot. And that broken plant pot was the very first project she made in her pottery studio. And she was very proud of that project, and she grew her very own begonias in there, which she dug up herself. And so I feel like that was just the start of the end for her, really. So she didn't really confront him about it. She left it there for a few days just to see if he would do anything about it, and he didn't. And so she called someone over. And yes, that person was Lane Coffin. So Lane Coffin was originally Lee's simoleon father, as one would say. So he called her up one day as he found her on a website looking for someone who can help with money, and so he said that he can help. I mean, look at the size of his house. It's absolutely incredible, truly. So he called up and said, "Hey, I heard you're looking for someone. I wouldn't mind helping you out. If you would like to maybe talk about this over coffee one day, we can." So Lee agreed. They set up the meeting, they met up. They actually ended up becoming very good friends. And they also ended up having some form of a relationship. And Lee, she felt comfortable with him, really. But then when she found out that she was pregnant with Packer's baby or babies, she broke up with Lane, and that was that with their relationship. The breakup was fine on both ends of the parties. So, yeah. So, when Lee found out about what Packer did, she called Lane and she spoke to him about what happened, about how she felt, and he basically comforted her in a way that maybe she shouldn't have been comforted. And then Lee and Lane did end up hooking up while Packer was at work, and she instantly felt regretful. She went into her bedroom, she just sat on her bed and thought about her actions. Like, for goodness sake, the twins were just in their room, just a few doors down. What was she thinking, hooking up with her old simoleon father? But there were feelings still there, so that was a part of it. But she decided at that time to push those feelings down. And then at that point, she bought her own pottery studio, artist studio, where she also was giving classes to customers, and she was really enjoying it there. They spent a lot of times with the twins, but she started to notice that Packer was spending a lot more time with Audrey and barely any time with Aubrey. He would always circle towards Audrey. He'd also treat her with toys and read her books at bedtime, but he would never treat Aubrey with the same respect, really. And then the twins aged up, and even as toddlers, Lee noticed that even with the girls as toddlers, Packer was barely spending any time with them. And then one day, Lane turned up at the door. Packer was home, and he decided to confront Lane. And he confronted Lane saying, "Well, why do I keep hearing from the neighbours that some older looking fancy guy keeps coming over to basically his and his girlfriend's house, and why he keeps coming in and being around the children?" And he was saying "Well, me and Lee have something good going here. I'd appreciate it if you just back off for once." But Lane, he felt angry, and he just said to Packer to appreciate what he has, because it's not going to last very long. But then one day, when Lee just came home from the pottery art studio, she turned on the computer and decided to chat to some friends. But she noticed that the chat room was already open, and she just thought, "Oh, well, what is Packer doing on her laptop in her chat rooms?" And she noticed some messages, but she just brushed it off. It's not as if she's the only one that has online friends, right? And then the girls were bonding very well. They were practically inseparable. Everything with the twins was going well. And Packer thought, well, maybe this will be okay now because Lane stepped back, right? Well, things didn't really go that well now because Lee actually went back to Lane. She talked with him. She said, how much she missed him and how much she feels like she's really messed up with her relationship with Packer, and how much she wants something better for herself and the girls. And then when she got home that night, she noticed that there was something strange going on with Packer's face. So she noticed that he grew a beard overnight, an absolutely bushy beard. And she laughed at him, and he was not impressed. And it led to a full-blown argument over just before Winterfest, which was not a great way to start the holiday. So on Winterfest, Lee noticed that outside, the snow piles were gone suddenly. So she knew who it was. So she sent a text to Lane. She said, oh, thank you for cleaning the path for us. Thank you for just helping, I guess. And then that night, Father Winter popped over and gave the girls presents. He gave Aubrey a giant blue stuffed bear that you'll see in the apartment. And he gave Audrey a tablet, a nice little blue tablet. And that night, when Lee went to give Packer a gift, so she bought him a rose and a book for Winterfest. He took it and he was like really happy with the gift. But she noticed that, he didn't bother to really get her anything, did he? So she confronted him about it, even though he knows that she'd even be happy with wildflowers from her own garden or even a community garden. And, he didn't do that. So she confronted him, and then he was saying all like, so I already gave you 2 gifts already, Lee. I gave you Audrey and Aubrey. What more can you want from me? So she said that's not really the point. He wasn't even bothered to show up for the girl's birthday for when they aged up into toddlers. He was working overtime in a painting career, which didn't really need to do overtime. He could just do stuff at home. And he was just completely upset. So the whole point was she wasn't all that bothered about not getting a gift. So the whole point was that she just wanted him to be there for her and the girls, and he just wasn't. So that argument ended with Lee sleeping on the couch and Packer taking the bedroom. The girls were already asleep at that time, thankfully, so they hopefully didn't hear any of that. And then in the middle of the night, Packer took Audrey and he just left with her. He took her back to Solani, put her into a makeshift toddler bed in his old house, and he's just decided to live there for now. And then the next morning, Lee was absolutely distraught. Her daughter was gone, one of her daughters was gone, and her boyfriend was gone as well, and that just absolutely peeved her off. So she called him dozens of times, no answer, so she went over to Solani, banged on his door and walked in, and she brought Aubrey with her, and because she couldn't find babysitting in time, so she brought Aubrey with her. She basically hit the door in, and she saw Audrey there, safe, fine, and Parker just sitting on the couch watching TV. She confronted him. She was so angry, so very angry, and he just kept bashing on and on and on at her about how, maybe if you didn't spend so much time with your pottery and your painting, maybe you'd notice more. And she was so mad at him, so she completely broke up with him, and he was for some reason upset, even though he didn't seem that fussed with just taking their daughter and leaving. But what they didn't notice was that Aubrey was watching their argument the whole time, just from the doorway of Audrey's new little bedroom. And then at the end of the day, Lee just tucked Audrey into bed. She thought, okay, the court's just we're going to take this to court. And they did, and unfortunately Parker did get custody of Audrey, and Aubrey ended up staying with Lee. So they left, they went home, and every single day Lee called Parker just so that she can get any information about Audrey, just so that she can hear about her day and anything like that when she couldn't visit. And then a few days later, Lee found out that she was pregnant. So as you can see now, she is currently in her 3rd trimester, and she's going to pop any day now. And we recently found out that she is pregnant with a boy. So yeah.